Hey everybody, Nick here. So this is the DZOFilm Arles Prime 5 lens kit. After months of research, testing, and deliberation, I decided to just go for it. I bought and paid for the whole set myself. This is not a sponsored video. DZOFilm has nothing to do with this video. I just really wanted this set because to me, these lenses are basically perfect. So let's talk about that. Over the past year and a half, I've shot a lot of footage for a lot of different projects. So far in 2024, I've delivered something like 25 hours of finished content. That includes this YouTube channel, which in 2024 amounts to about 8 hours of me ranting at all of you. And if you've been here before, you might know that I've been really obsessing over lenses. In particular, I've been obsessing over what to lean on as my everyday workhorse set of spherical primes, because that's how I like to shoot, on primes. I'm not a zoom guy. I don't shoot a lot of documentary type stuff. I love fast lenses, clean lenses. And previously I had been shooting on the Nisi Athenas. And the strength of the Athenas is that they're small, but still robust. They're clean, they're sharp, and at T1.9, they're pretty fast. It's overall a very nice set, but it tends to leave me feeling a little bit cold. Now, I'm not a guy who likes to use words like character or clinical or other undefined words, because I think if we're trying to describe something technical, precision of language is important. But if you'll permit me a small excursion from that rule, I'll tell you that a lot of the time, I felt like the Athenas were just a bit harsh. They do a great job, they're built very well, and honestly, I can't really find any particular thing to complain about, but I almost never looked through the camera and said, wow, that's it, that's what my heart wanted for this shot. Now, you could argue that if I didn't like how a shot looked through the lens, it was my fault as a cinematographer, and that's a fair criticism. But the more I played with different lenses, saw different things at NAB, at Cinegear, tested things back home doing lens reviews, buying and selling different lenses, as I saw everything from $300 converted photo stills up to $40,000 Cooke special flare anamorphics, I came away with a pretty clear opinion on this subject, particularly when it comes to spherical lenses. And here's that opinion in a nutshell. On the one hand, a lot of lenses tend to look very similar, especially after you've done a strong color grade. How many of us haven't watched a lens comparison and had to really squint to see the differences? And even when the lenses aren't that similar, if you're doing a good job telling your story, the lens is the last thing that your audience is going to notice. Now, on the other hand, every once in a while you find something special that really inspires you as the creative. And even if your audience isn't sure why it inspired you or doesn't see that, I truly believe that those inspirations make their way into the work and that your art will be that much better for it. So that brings me to the lenses that I've talked about so many times on this channel already, the DZOFilm Arles Primes. In my main review, I said I was looking for my forever lenses, but at the time I didn't have a conclusion as to whether these fit the bill. So let's return to that idea. And let me put it in context. I'm not the kind of person who's concerned with things like personal legacy. I don't really care how I'm remembered or if I'm remembered at all. I do have children, and of course I care a great deal about their happiness and success and how they live their lives once I'm gone, but I've never cared for a second about anyone carrying on my name or remembering me or any of that nonsense. I don't care. But on the other hand, I have this strange obsession with tools that will outlast me. When I buy something like a lens, I want it to be something that will survive the apocalypse. I want it to be forwards compatible with every possible future camera. I want it to outlive me. And I have no idea why. As I mentioned, I don't care what happens when I'm gone. If I die and my family chooses to sell every bit of camera gear in our possession, that's fine. But I want the things I use to be like monuments. It's just a weird philosophical position that I can't really justify, but it feels right to me. And the more I used the Arles Primes, the more they felt like they really did fit that bill. Every other lens in this sort of you can afford it and not just a rent category is something that gets framed in terms of how close is it to the real deal. And that's not something that I'm considering when I make a purchase. That's not the framing I want to make. I don't like phrases like, well, these lenses punch way above their weight, competing with lenses of 10 times their price. No. Look, for the price of a set of Athenas, you could buy a used Cooke S4. The same legendary glass used for things like, oh, I don't know, Game of Thrones, James Bond, among others. And I'd rather have one fantastic lens than 5 lenses that leave me feeling cold. And the Arles primes, they don't just give me a better feeling than the Athenas. They give me the exact feeling I'm looking for. They do everything I want. The T 1.4 speed on full frame is fantastic. They're sharp, especially in the center, but not too sharp. And they get a little softer in the corners, which I like. The image is just a bit warm. It makes people look beautiful. The texture and the shape of the bokeh is outstanding. I love the slight swirl shot wide open, which isn't overly noticeable and not super cat's eye, but almost elliptical. It just gently hugs the center of frame. I love how clean they are, low coma, low color fringing. These lenses are somewhat flare resistant, but when they do flare, it's quite lovely. It's almost like a Zeiss Supreme Radiance, but toned down just a little bit. If I had to describe these lenses in terms of other lenses, I'd say they're almost like a perfect cross between a Cooke, in terms of the bokeh, the warmth, the corner softness, and Zeiss with the overall contrast and the flare. It's like my favorite aspects of those two brands blended into the perfect final product. And I get all of that in a package that's robust, but not too large. It's in PL mount, but not too long of a flange depth, and consistent 95mm fronts across the set. The housing is only a little bit bigger than the largest front element in the set. Most focal lengths use beefy elements up front. Yeah, they're heavier than what you get in the Athenas, but you can see what you're getting for that weight. And I really like the aesthetic design that they've chosen here. They're just very pretty lenses to look at. But more importantly, every time I put one of these on a camera, I see something beautiful. I'm not one of those people who ever cares about trying to recreate an image the way our eyes see, because in my opinion, that's a silly goal. I don't care if the image matches my eyes. I want it to match my imagination, to match my heart, the emotions I have about the shot. Have you ever been on a set? It looks nothing like the finished product. That whole "it's like our eyes see" is nuts to me. I care about how our image feels. And these lenses make an image that feels right to me. So let's talk about the cons. Number one, these are heavier than something like the Athena. That's about it. Honestly, we could nitpick a little bit more. We could talk about things like how DZOFilm doesn't quite have the brand pedigree of Cooke, Zeiss, Leitz, Canon. And so if you buy these, they may not hold their value over time as well as something like an ARRI Master Prime. So if you do buy them, just make sure that you get value out of using them. The other complaint I've seen is people saying that there's a little bit of quality control issue, that the dampening isn't quite consistent over the set of lenses, and that's a fair complaint. We should be able to nail those things with modern manufacturing, but honestly, it's not something I'm personally worried about. This set here was very consistent across the board. These are built very well. Everything works just fine, and I have every reason to believe that it will stand the test of time with appropriate care and maintenance. For those of you who think it's unacceptable for this kind of flaw to exist in a cinema prime at all, well, make sure you steer clear of anything made prior to the year 2000, because vintage lenses almost all have problems. You want to use the legendary Zeiss super speeds? Get ready for a ton of inconsistency. Anyway, my point here is that none of this bothers me much at all. These are built like tanks, they make beautiful pictures, and that's really all I care about. In short, for me, these lenses are not something I think of as punching above their weight, because I'm not trying to see how close they get to other lenses. I'm trying to see how close they get to the image that I want. And these hit that bullseye perfectly. So I bought the set. It's 25, 35, 50, 75, and 100. If you saw my earlier review, you might remember I said I could get by with just the 25, 50, and 100. That's like my desert island trio. But I was really interested in the 35 and the 75, so I just went for the full set. Plus, if for any reason I do need to sell them down the line, it's always easier to have a full set than try and move individual focal lengths. The only thing I might miss here is an ultra wide, so I'll be really interested to see the 14mm Arles Prime when it's released in the next month or two. Or at some point, I might snag a 12mm or 16mm Vespid and add it to this kit. Another small thing I decided to add to the kit was the coupe filter set. These are small magnetic filters that snap onto the rear elements, but you have to first unscrew and replace this rear threaded element. So make sure if you invest in coupe, you know that, because they only come with 3 of them, and there's 5 of these in the set. I didn't know that when I bought it, but I found that out, and so now I have to figure out how to either get 2 more or just return the coupe filters. But I haven't done much with it yet. I'm excited to play with it, and so we'll see what it looks like. My Athena lenses, lovely though they are, have been sold, and they're shipping out right after I finish this video. Yes, I could have kept them, maybe used them for gimbal work, maybe rented them out. They're still very nice lenses, but I'm not in the rental game at the moment, and I didn't want to be sitting on two similarly situated sets of spherical lenses. Say that 5 times fast. I decided to hitch my fortunes to the DZOFilm Arles Primes, and I cannot wait to shoot more with them. Again, I bought these lenses with my own money. DZOFilm has nothing to do with this video. I just really like the lenses. This is my forever set, and it's the tool I plan to use for the foreseeable future. It is astonishing that lenses this good exist at this price point. The market's flooded with great budget lenses, but to me, these really stand apart. I was talking to another cinematographer who shares my overall opinion of them, and he mentioned it's getting harder and harder for small budget productions to justify using their budget on renting premium lenses when the budget options have become so good. And I want to be careful here because the sentiment isn't, wow, premium lenses aren't worth the price tag. Rather, it's just the opposite. It's finally possible for lower priced lenses to be great, but only by benefit of what has come before. The progression of this art form and the technology that goes with it, the increased market for good cinema glass because of its increased accessibility, changes in modern optics, computer-aided lens design, precision machining, improvements in material science, all of these things have made the Arles lenses possible. And I think it's critical to recognize the incredible achievements in lens manufacturing over the past 30 years that have brought us to this place. I'm just so grateful that these lenses are here, and I'm really excited to make them part of my workflow. That's going to be it today. If you have any questions about these lenses or anything else I didn't cover in the video, please hit me up in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.